first thing I want to look at is what is actually meant when you say Kashmir. Kashmir is the northernmost geographical region of the Indian subcontinent. So up until the mid-19th century, the term Kashmir meant only the Kashmir Valley, but today it actually denotes a much larger area that includes the Indian administered territory of Jammu and Kashmir, which includes the divisions of Jammu, Kashmir Valley, as well as Ladakh. It also includes the Pakistani administered territories of Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. It also refers to the Chinese administered territory of Aksai Chin and the Trans-Karakoram Tract. India controls about 101,338 square kilometers, Pakistan controls 85.8, and China controls about 37,555 square kilometers. Of course, because it's a self-administered region. The name of the state animal of Jammu and Kashmir is the Kashmir stag, and the state bird is the black-necked crane, and the state flower is the lotus. Also, the state tree is the chinar tree. And when it comes to Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, the president is the constitutional head of the state, while the prime minister, supported by a council of ministers, is the chief executive. The Himalayan monal is the state bird. So with that sort of introduction, let's get into the real meat and potatoes here. Article 370 acknowledged the special status of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, the Indian-controlled portion of Kashmir. However, the government of India, they revoked the special status that was granted to Jammu and Kashmir. And according to India Today, the government says that this would pave the way for the people of Jammu and Kashmir, so far leading lives of second-class citizens, to join the mainstream of the nation. Following that, now India's parliament voted to approve the status change for the state of Jammu and Kashmir, and then things just began to erupt from there. Because you see, the reorganization of the bill increases India's authority over the region, and it changes it from an autonomous state into a union state. So Pakistan responds that this change is actually illegal, and Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, said this in his own words: "If the world does not act now, if the so-called developed world does not uphold its own laws, then things will go to a place that will damage the whole world." And also, following that, Pakistan has announced that it will be downgrading diplomatic relations as well as suspend bilateral trade with India after they strip Jammu and Kashmir of its special status. But things also get a little more interesting because China also occupies a portion of Kashmir. China has also objected this reorganization by India, and China accused India of undermining its territorial sovereignty. A spokesperson for the Chinese government, they called this unacceptable and said that it would help Pakistan in defending its legitimate rights and interests in the Kashmir region. If you've seen any of my videos, you'll know that I've talked about China and Pakistan's relationship over the years, especially when it comes to military. According to the latest reports, the US President Donald Trump says that he is ready, willing, and able to mediate an agreement with India and Pakistan. President Trump said this in his own words: "Want to see everyone treated well in Kashmir. If they both say we have a point to iron out, I will be ready to do it. I think I'd be an extremely good arbitrator." Now the big question is asked, why the big fuss about Kashmir anyways? Mughal Emperor Jahangir said the following words when he visited Kashmir in the 17th century: "If there is a heaven on earth, it's here, it's here, it's here." Kashmir is known for its beautiful lakes, its meadows, its snow-capped mountains, and even before India and Pakistan won their independence from Britain in August of 1947, it was a highly sought-after area. The Maharaja, or the ruler at the time, Hari Singh, initially wanted Kashmir to become completely independent, but in October of 1947, he chose to join India. Kashmir has glaciers, it has fresh waters, and it's a region that's heavily relied on by Pakistan, India, and China. According to the diplomat, Kashmir is located in a very strategic position on Earth, and it serves as a main source of water and power generation for both Pakistan and India. The control of the region creates a zero-sum game, in which the control of the rivers and the glacial water, it can actually become a threat for both sides. With a growing population and an increased need for electricity, of course, course, India has looked to the region to develop more hydro plants. Pakistan fears that India is going to divert water necessary for irrigation and use the water as a weapon against Pakistan. So there's so much tension, so much drama going on about this region. And with fact number 10, both India and Pakistan control different parts of Kashmir, like I mentioned in the intro, but they're separated by a line of control, also known as an LOC. India has control over Jammu and Kashmir, and I have some more updated information about that later on. But that makes up the southern and eastern portions of the region. And now Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan is made up of the northern and western portions of the region, and those portions are controlled by Pakistan. Also on top of that, there's another area in the northern part of this region that's controlled by China, and that area is called Aksai Chin. Next fact you gotta know is that India and Pakistan have both fought several wars since their independence of 1947 over the issue of Kashmir. So this beautiful place has been a very disputed territory, and this region happens to be a serious hurdle for peace between the two countries for a very long time now. There's been a lot of movements towards, getting this settled. Even President Donald Trump of the United States said that he would be a mediator between India and Pakistan about Kashmir. But that's a whole nother story that I will not get into right now, but let's continue on with the facts. The region of Kashmir is in fact a disputed area between the countries of India and Pakistan. Okay, it's known, right? So in order to restore peace and security of the region, the United National Security Council, they actually passed a resolution to allow people of this region to make a choice for themselves. And those choices include to stay with India or Pakistan or stay independent. And a lot of people, yes, are calling for an independent Kashmir. They don't want to be a part of India, China, or Pakistan at all. Now for fact number 7, what I'll mention is this. Centuries ago, Hinduism was the most popular religion in Kashmir, followed by Buddhism. But since the invasion by the Mughals, Islam began to spread a lot and is now actually the majority religion of Kashmir. As a matter of fact, 97.16% of the region's population identify as Muslims. Switching gears a little bit now, let's talk about the climate of the region. So the regions of Kashmir have very little rainfall, therefore the seasons in Kashmir are mainly summer and winter. There will be moderate to heavy snowfall in the winter months between December and February, and the summers are pretty mild, not getting too hot at all. The humidity though is pretty high in Kashmir, and you'll find that the summer nights can be a little bit on the cool side. So all in all, the temperature and the weather and the climate isn't too extreme in Kashmir. Yes, it can get really cold in the wintertime, sure, but for the most part it is very manageable. Getting back into this episode now at fact number 5, we're looking at India's occupation of Kashmir. Kashmir is the jurisdictional area of Kashmir, and the Kashmir Valley, also known as the Vale of Kashmir, is one of the several valleys of Kashmir. Now it's marked by the area between the Pir Panjal Range in the southwest and the Himalayas in the northeast. Then there's the Jhelum River, and that's the only river that flows through this area. And the valley, like I mentioned, is administered by India. When it comes to the economy of Kashmir, it is focused on agriculture. So people there, they grow rice, as well as Kashmiri wool is very popular in the area, and people know about it pretty much from everywhere in the world. And Kashmir wool is the wool, of course, from Kashmir goats. The Kashmir Valley is also well known for its cold water fisheries. Now, wood from Kashmir is used to make high quality cricket bats, and those are known as Kashmir willow. That's a pretty popular name for them. Then there's Kashmiri saffron. It's also very popular, and it really brings the state a large amount of money when it comes to foreign exchange. Next up for fact number 3, there is some updated information about Jammu and Kashmir, which is the Indian occupied regions of Kashmir. Provisions for the formation of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir were contained within Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act of 2019. Now this was an act that was passed by both houses of Parliament of India in August of 2019, so last summer. So this act, what it did was it reconstituted the state of Jammu and Kashmir as two union territories known as Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. And this, by the way, went into effect in October of 2019. Like I mentioned, Kashmir is known by many as heaven on earth. So of course, there's going to be several popular tourist spots in the region. Like there's some great spots like Srinagar, Gulmarg, Sonamarg, as well as Pahalgam. They're very popular tourist destinations in the Indian occupied Kashmir. As well as you're going to find some beautiful lakes like Dal Lake as well as Wular Lake. And the most popular places in Pakistan administered Kashmir, they are Muzaffarabad and Gilgit-Baltistan. Then there is the Mangla Dam Lake and Mangla Hamlet. The New Lumriga as well as the Nergola waterfall are great places for water sports in Azad Kashmir. Then there's the Hunza Valley as well as the Abbottabad Lake. Those are very popular tourist spots in Gilgit-Baltistan. And the last thing I want to take a look at though is a fact about the flag of Azad Kashmir. Of course, in the flag you're going to notice the green background, and there's 4 horizontal white stripes with horizontal alternating green stripes. Then there's a star and a crescent moon and a gold rectangle. And now this flag was adopted on September 24th in the year 1975. Now the green fields, it represents the Muslim majority population, and the gold rectangle represents the religious minorities. The white stripes represent the snow on top of the mountains, as well as the green stripes represent the Valley of Kashmir. The star and the crescent moon, of course, are features of Pakistan's national flag. Starting at number 10, back in the year 1947, that's when India and Pakistan gained independence from Great Britain. So then Kashmir had initially decided to remain independent, and they chose not to become part of either India or Pakistan. And then afterwards, as militants from Pakistan invaded, the Maharaja of Kashmir, he signed a letter acceding to India. Now Pakistan doesn't even recognize this letter though as a legal document, and of course that sparked conflict over the years to come. Also, in part 1 I shared facts about Azad Kashmir and its flag, but there is another flag associated with Kashmir. But you know, before I get into the specifics of that flag, I gotta share this. So before losing their statehood status and becoming 2 separate union territories, the state of Jammu and Kashmir was actually permitted to fly its own state flag in addition to the national flag of India, and that was from between the years 1952 up until 2019. Now that flag, its color was red, and that originally was used to represent the martyrs, and those martyrs were people who lost their lives during the July 13th 1931 demonstration. But then later the color red was used to symbolize the workers and the laborers. Now in the middle of the flag you're going to see this plow symbol, and that symbolizes the farmers. And then next to this staff you'll see that there's 3 vertical white strips. Now those represent the 3 regions of Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh. So fact number 8, this next place is also nicknamed the gateway to Ladakh, and this place is Dras. It's a very popular tourist spot, and it is the coldest inhabited place in all of India because temperatures sometimes reach as low as minus 45 degrees Celsius. So bring a blanket or 2 or 3 or 4, maybe 10 blankets and jackets and ear muffs, everything winter. You're gonna need it here. Traditionally though, Dras is known as Hembabs, and that means the snow land. And the word Hem means snow, and it's also recognized as the 2nd coldest inhabited place in the entire world because the average temperature in Dras during the winter time is negative 20 degrees Celsius. For fact number 7, when it comes to the government structure of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, also known as AJK, or sometimes simply just called Azad Kashmir, it's actually considered a self-governing state. But ever since the year 1949 and the ceasefire that happened between India and Pakistan, well, Pakistan exercised control over it without actually incorporating it into Pakistan. But you know, even saying that though, that point is debatable depending on which side of the argument you fall on. But in looking at the plain facts of the situation, it still stands that Azad Kashmir has its own elected president, its own prime minister, its own legislative assembly, as well as its own high court, and of course it has its own flag to represent it. From there, I want to talk about Aksai Chin. Now this is the disputed border area between China and India, and the history behind it goes like this. Well, India claims Aksai Chin as the easternmost part of the Union territory of Ladakh, which is part of the Indian-controlled Kashmir. But China is like, They claim that Aksai Chin is part of the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region and Tibet. Alright, now so moving on to fact number 5. According to its etymology, or the root of the name Kashmir actually means desiccated land. And that comes from the Sanskrit term K, meaning water, and Shimira, meaning desiccate. And by the way, if you're not familiar with that term, I wasn't. I had to look this up. Desiccated is a term that's not really used much these days as it was before in the past, but it really means to remove the moisture from something and cause it to become completely dry. Now, while I was researching that, I also got curious about what the name Aksai Chin even means anyways. Well, that name Aksai Chin translates to Chin's Desert of White Stones. That's the literal translation. When it comes to the language of Kashmir, the Kashmiri principal or primary language, it comes from the Dardic group, and other languages spoken are Shina. You'll find speakers of that highly concentrated in the Ladakh region. Also, you're going to find Urdu speakers, Dogri speakers, Balti, Ladakhi, Godri, as well as Pashto speakers in the land. Now, the area of Kashmir is very fertile, and it was a melting pot of various civilizations in the past. Whole lot of mixture, literally a melting pot of cultures down there. So when people talk about Kashmiri culture, you can't just point at one thing. There's so many different cultural influences that come out of Kashmir. But with that said, next up, I actually have some food and cultural facts that I want to share about Kashmir. So, have you heard the term wazwan before? Well, this is a traditional dish of Jammu and Kashmir, and it is a multi-course meal. And it's sometimes known to be really influenced by Arabic as well as other influences from different parts of the world. Another thing, Wazwan is actually a very popular tourist spot. There's also a floating market in Srinagar, and this is the only floating market in the entire nation, and it's only the third of its kind in all of Asia. Of course, it is a major tourist attraction as well. Another thing is that Kashmir is the largest producer of saffron in India, and it is the third largest producer of saffron in the entire world. So yeah, that was kind of like a collection of multiple different facts about the food and culture of Kashmir. For fact number 2, Aksai Chin, the area has a very large number of drainage basins with many salt or soda lakes. And now the primary salt lakes are in Surig Ganing Kol, as well as Sotang and Aksai Chin Lake, and Hongshan Hu, as well as several others. But the northern part of Aksai Chin is actually referred to as the Soda Plains, and it's located near Aksai Chin's largest river, and that is the Karakash River. This river gets water that comes from glaciers that melt, and this river actually serves as one of the main sources of water for the Karakash as well as the Hotan counties. Now we've reached number 1 in this episode. The final thing I want to share about Kashmir is this. So located in a huge houseboat by the mountains on the Dal Lake in Srinagar, there you're going to find India's first and only floating post office, and it's also believed that this is the only one of its kind in the entire world. This here is considered to be a tribute to the Dal Lake, and it's also one of the most important tourist attractions in Kashmir because, you know, being the only one of its kind, it's really promoted tourism in Kashmir.